Part two of why I'm being murdered and why I look like such a funny man, 32 years old, having to do the cane. And if you take my cane, I'll get stuck on the ground, just sitting on my ass. And then when I try to stand up, or if you try to force me to stand up, I'll moan, walk a little bit. I'll get cramps in the intestines that will throw me forward, and then you'll keep on ripping and tearing my insides if you try to force it until my hernia causes pain for the next 2 years every day of my life. So, yes, people have tried to force injuries into me, drag me on the floor, across the floor. They've tried everything. I mean, trust me, they've tried to hurt me a million in different ways. It's just epilepsy. All they have to do is give me epilepsy medication and I get better and write down documentation of my disability. But see, nobody wants to take the patient's information. Me. I'm the patient. I've lived in this body for 25 years. I was there. I've never lied to a doctor. I've never ever tried to lie about any doctor type of stuff. Even at the age of 13, I always had the policy to be honest with your doctor. With the program that's trying to get me in trouble for drinking a bottle of cough medicine, no, I didn't tell the program I drank a cup of cough medicine. But when they brought me to the emergency room and I was in the check-in counter and they asked me why I'm there and they say, oh, we think he's high, and they asked me if I took anything, I said cough medicine right off the rip. Now that's a good thing too, because doctors like to screw my record. Like for instance, cough medicine comes up as PCP. I don't know if you know this, but if you take Robitussin, a lot of it, or corticidin, or any other cough medicine, and you go to the emergency room, you'll fail for a PCP if there's enough in your system. Now, when I was 12, 13, 14, I failed for PCP because I took cough medicine. And it went on my medical record that I failed for PCP. Now, I told them that it was cough medicine. But when you see a note, 14 years old, failed for PCP, and you don't see the note, false positive for cough medicine, that is how you screw with somebody's life. They go, oh, this kid's nuts. He was homicidal at 14. I see a little note here that says he was torturing animals. I see a note here that says at 12 years old, he was on PCP. Oh, my God. And here's a note that he was burning down houses at age 5. Oh, my God. And then he just disappears to Texas and New Mexico. And then in New Mexico, he's getting abused. And then he's stupid and he can't learn. We're seeing all these crazy notes. This guy's insane. Oh, my God. We can't take his information. No. Meanwhile, what is all that? Is any of that true? No. None of it is even true. It's all made up stories that my mother made up to doctors that got put on my permanent record. Yes, my mother loved to spend storytelling about me to the doctors. Oh, my son is homicidal. He hurts animals. Well, where did that one come from? I did a science experiment with some slime. I went outside and held a match to some slug slime. Then I went inside and told my father about it. I told him how I held a match to some slug slime and I wanted to see if it was fireproof, see if the slug was fireproof, the slime, to make a fire extinguisher or a jacket. I was trying to explain it, but I didn't know how to explain how I'm doing the scientific method and what I have this great mind trying to fix problems. I saw something on TV that said slugs were born out of fire pits. At least that's what the Romans used to believe. That this was a show showing Roman beliefs from the 1600s, how they believed that slugs actually were born out of fireplaces because they used to see the babies come out of ashes in the morning. And so I saw that and said, oh, slugs have something fireproof if they can take that heat. So I said maybe that would make a good jacket for firefighters, or later I realized it would be a fire extinguisher. But what did my mother do? She had me injected, spun stories at the doctor's office that I must be out there hurting animals. So they put me on drugs, inject me, like some kid who's out there really doing it. I mean, I literally have my mother hurting me. She needs help right away. She has Munchausen syndrome. She's slipping me pills. She's destroyed my nervous system. She's slapping me around in rooms, throwing shoes at her child, almost taking her child's eye out. Why? Because the child says you're mentally ill and you need help? Because that's usually what it was. I would tell my mother, you're acting crazy. And then she would lose it and start beating me with a ruler or backhanding me or throwing a shoe at me. And then my father would be like, well, don't call her crazy. Yeah, but it is crazy to whoop a child every fucking 5 minutes or drug him or slip him pills on Halloween and make him sick so he can't go out. That was a weird one. Yeah, she used to give me pills and say, it's time to take your pills. And then I would vomit right when the pills came in. And she would do this whenever she had needed to get her way. Like when I was allowed to go out trick or treating and wear my costume, my mother drugged me so I would be sick, and then she told everybody, Zach can't go out with you trick or treating. He's sick now. But it was instantaneous with the pills that she was giving me. It was obvious. She did this during my adoption, my own adoption. She drugged me, and I was passed out for the whole thing. Even my own party, when people were giving me gifts, all I wanted to do was lay down on the floor because the meds that she slipped me were so strong. Yes, she over medicated me by lying to doctors, but on top of that, she was slipping me her own drugs. Okay, let's talk about now. I'm 32 years old. I have to be out in a couple days. Where am I going? Nowhere. I'm going into the woods of Concord. I'm going to start preparing how to live like Rambo and how to hold people responsible and teach them not to hurt any more disabled men in this way. I could never live with myself if more children get made disabled like I did. If more people are hurt, because I'm getting hurt today, tomorrow. If I go to the doctors today, if I go to Frisbee or Wentworth Douglas, let's say I have a fall from the seizure, they will kill me. I will never walk again. Now, anybody else, that's untrue for them because they didn't have my mother and father manipulating doctors and weaponizing them. But if anybody on this planet was treated like I was for the last 25 years, they would already be dead already, or they would be fucking nuts, a loony, some serial killer. Instead, I went monk with it. I started to try to help disabled children, disabled adults, elderly people. I went the opposite way because there's two ways you go when a mother and father starts crippling you through doctors. Yes, that's how my mother and father did it. Some people use a gun as a weapon. Some people use a brick as a weapon. Some people strangle their children to death. But my mother and father, they wanted to use pills and doctors to finish me off and cripple me slowly. Now, my father wasn't complacent in it. He didn't know what was going on at first, but as the years went by, he must have. I mean, he knew my mother was popping pills out of the closet that weren't hers, and he'll probably lie about that too. No, my wife was never take drugs that weren't hers. My wife would never take drugs. She would never take drugs. I just know that. Oh yeah, Dad? Then why was Patricia in the medicine closet taking Vicodin that weren't prescribed to her? Tell me that. Well, because she was a nurse, she can do whatever she wants with your pills. Okay, I want you to say that out loud on the record that you think that because my mother was my mother and a nurse, she can take Vicodin prescribed to me that is still needed. That she can take my Xanax, she can take my Vicodin, she can take any pills or drugs she wants because she used to be a nurse and she used to be my mother. Because then you'll have to go back on that later when everybody's horrified. Because there's always some excuse like that. Oh, well, she used to be a nurse, so she could take all the drugs she wants with your name on the bottle. Like little, or this was the one my mother used actually on that day. Remember, she died the year after this, too. She takes Vicodin that's prescribed to me because my mother's drugging me so severely. They're finding me on the kitchen floor in extreme pain, literally curled up in a ball, covering my ears, screaming, it hurts, it hurts. And then they got to bring me to the emergency room. They give me Vicodin, it works. My mother wants to hold on to it because she's a drug addict who likes to pop my pills. She is not able to control her pills whatsoever. I wasn't great at it either because I was getting the wrong message from my mother. Now I'm fantastic at handling medication. And that's because I learned from my mother's mistakes as well as my own. Something my father can't seem to understand is that when my mother makes a mistake, when I'm 5 years old, steals a swimming medal, I'm on the floor OD'd. You hear at the doctor's office that there's some mysterious allergy attack that caused your son to lose his vision, lose the ability to speak, lose the ability to feel his whole arm. He's screaming for help. And they told her to bring me to the emergency room and they refused. Maybe not try to forget about that because that's what my father did. Instead of handling it, when teachers and doctors are saying something's wrong suddenly with your son's body. We've known your son for a while now, and all of a sudden last night, something must have happened because his body is moving differently, he's talking differently, he's writing his name differently. And then my parents decide they're not going to do anything about it. So the school gets upset, and they put me in speech therapy and physical therapy. And they tell my mother to do something. You need to do something about this. And my mother's like, no, I'm his mother. I'm not going to do a damn thing. Because I just brought this up at my primary care's office, and she didn't like that. So she's trying to disappear these reports. Meanwhile, the teachers are like, no, you got to make reports on this. And so my mother's conflicted, so she puts me in ballet, tap dancing, and a bunch of other girly sports. So that way she makes things worse for me. But she can say she's doing something, and she's trying to make my coordination better. Even though my mother knows that there's something more here because she was the cause of it, and she used to be a nurse, so she knows very well what she's doing. But my father's in the dark because he's clueless. And my mother could be putting a hot red poker up my ass, and my father would hear me screaming upstairs, and my mother could tell him, oh no, it's just a doctor treatment. And my father would be like, oh, it's just a doctor treatment. Okay. Oh, it's like blowing smoke up the ass. Oh, you're blowing smoke up Zach's ass, and that's actual treatment. Yes, it is. Oh, okay. And you're doing it with a red hot poker. Yeah. Oh, okay. And that is an exaggeration, but that's how my father was with this stuff. So when my mother called it an allergy attack, even though she never got that from a doctor, she pulled that out of her ass, my father went along with it. And then my mother just continues to play this game where she pretends like she forgot. Now I'm 32 years old, still suffering. I'm still falling. Every winter, I get awful injuries. I lose memories I'll never get back. I lose parts of my nervous system I'll never get back. And I pull muscles and damage organs. My bones get fractured, and it's really bad. And this has been happening for 25 years on a sliding scale going down, getting worse and worse and worse. But why can't I get help from doctors? That's the key word here. Why can't I just go to work and get help from doctors? What's so hard about that? Well, I have a job right now. I have a job. Well, I have a doctor. Well, then what are you complaining about, Zach? Oh, my doctor won't do anything because of my father's and mother's reports. He needs me to be in a wheelchair and have lots more seizures before he'll do anything and write down any paperwork. Oh, so you're only getting one. So how about the epilepsy medication? He'll only prescribe me one because I was on it a long, long time ago for a different reason. So he feels comfortable prescribing that one because he can blame other doctors. Oh, so you're not getting, no, that's just a stopgap measure, epileptic medication. But I've seen 80% improvement indoors with that in one epileptic medication. But we already know all epileptic medication shows improvement in me. Every epileptic medication I've ever taken, everything from gabapentin, triliptal, CBDV, all these, doesn't matter. They're all non-controlled substances. Actually, I think they changed gabapentin recently. But then there's also controlled substances like diazepams, where there are many of them, or pregabalin, what is Lyrica. All those also seem to help. So there are so many epileptic medications we know already that will help, but there's a whole list of more that are not controlled substances, but they're prescription only. So I asked the doctor, can you please prescribe me a non-controlled substance epileptic medication? So one I will not get addicted to. Can you try some of this? Well, not until your parents have given me more to go on or we see more injuries. But I can't survive much more injuries, Doc. I can't walk into the cold and cause much more seizures. Plus, you didn't give me the insurance cut off the bracelet. Why? Because my father contacted the Department of Health and told them it's all a game. And the Department of Health is who my insurance company is. New Hampshire Health and Families is ran out of the Department of Health. And my father told the Department of Health that there's no need to pay for things like that. I'm going to have to do a part 3.